This is a pretty interesting situation because it turns out Western media is capable of talking about a bombing attack, like talking about a bombing where like children are slaughtered with incredibly graphic terms. Yeah, it turns out that they can do that. Because I thought like this entire time, I thought they were just like weirdly restricted to cover this kind of stuff. Yeah, new journalism unlocked. This is a new skill in American journalism. Well, I guess it was an old skill when we're talking about Russia. Yeah. Also, classic situation where, of course, it's Druze children, and it's Arab Israelis who don't have the same access, who sometimes aren't even considered full Israelis. This is in the Golan Heights as well, which is annexed Israeli territory. I don't know what the actual details are. These are Syrians in Syria. Yeah, no, but they don't consider themselves. They're not even Israelis. They're Syrians. Yeah, they don't consider themselves Israelis. And the thing is, but Israel is using this as a way to gear up for a war in Lebanon, to be like, no, these are Israeli citizens when we love them and we care about them. Just like that one time there was a piece of shrapnel that fell on the makeshift house of one of the Palestinian citizens of Israel when Iran retaliated against Israel's original attack on the Iranian consulate, and then Israel was like, we love our Palestinian citizens of Israel, while they were like in the process of evacuating them out of their homes for the 700th time. So I don't know, people are saying that this is like potentially a Iron Dome, but I doubt it. That was the Bedouin population, and then very quickly as I said at the time, that like the likelihood that they got hit was because they don't have the same kind of Iron Dome coverage and defense. It came to be true.
An attack on a football field in the Israel.
Does this show the graphic imagery? I don't want to see it because it's really up.
Israeli-occupied Golan Heights killed at least 12 children over the weekend. Israel's military spokesman referred to those killed as Israeli citizens, but when he did so, he was immediately interrupted.
These guys are not Israeli. They famously didn't accept Israeli citizenship in Majd al-Shams. There's an iconic picture from 1982 of them throwing their passports to the ground. Keep in mind, 90% of Golan Heights population was ethnically cleansed in 1967 and the years that followed. Majd al-Shams was one of those towns that stayed pretty much untouched. Every other town was partially or fully emptied.
Interrupted.
שבה אזרחי מדינת ישראל ממג'ד אל-שמס, קהילה, עדה דרוזית. הם לא אזרחי מדינת ישראל. אנחנו מחבקים אותם.
And when some Israeli politicians, including far-right minister Bezalel Smotrich, tried to attend the funeral of the victims, this happened.
Like, it's so obvious that they're like trying to act like they give a shit about these people.
So what is this all about, and how can it help us understand the Druze community that live in the highly contested Israeli-occupied Golan Heights? So this attack happened on the Druze village of Majd.
And more stuff about Golan Heights. Donald Trump permanently recognized the annexation of Golan Heights. It's Syrian territory that Israel currently occupies. Donald Trump made America recognize that occupation as just and legitimate, which was insane. But yeah.
Shams. And the 12 children who were killed were not Israeli passport holders or Israeli citizens. In fact, they were Syrian Arabs, like much of the Druze community who live in that area.
لتوضيح نقطة غير واضحة عند كثيرين، سكان مجد الشمس والجولان المحتل ككل يعرفون نفسهم باعتبارهم سوريين 100%. منذ احتلالهم عام 67 حتى اليوم رفضوا كل محاولات إسرائيل لسلخهم عن وطنهم الأم سوريا.
And most residents.
Trump just followed through on a promise made in the Clinton cabinet. Yeah, dude, I know. There's just like such a weird reason that like no other administration did that, though. It's everything that the Trump cabinet did, or the Trump administration did, in terms of our dealings with Israel, was, events that were previously set in motion that every Democratic and even Republican administrations would not touch, for an obvious reason, because they knew that the tensions would inevitably rise if they were to do so. If they were to give Israel that bone that they were desperately looking for, that they would go crazy. That's why Donald Trump was uniquely bad on Israel. That like these were prior promises and assurances made that always had gotten in prior administrations, both Democratic and Republican, continuation. Like they would be like, oh yeah, we're passing it down. We're passing it down. There were multiple things that he did, like the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem. This was another thing that they just kept pushing. They kept pushing back on. Donald Trump, on the other hand, was like, no, f it, YOLO. We love that.
Of Majd al-Shams absolutely refuse Israeli citizenship. Following the attack, many people were quick to point blame on who was responsible for the deadly strike. Israel, the US, and some Syrians blamed the Lebanese group Hezbollah. But Hezbollah claimed the strike was from a misfired Israeli Iron Dome rocket. The funeral procession...
Oh yeah, there's a Jewish settlement. There is a Jewish settlement called Trump Heights in Golan Heights. A planned Israeli settlement in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights named in honor of Donald Trump. Dude, I don't think people understand how much Israelis love Donald Trump.
For the 12 killed children was attended by much of the Druze community in Majd al-Shams. The residents kicked out several Israeli politicians who tried to attend the funeral, including members of the Israeli parliament and in particular far-right minister Bezalel Smotrich, and as they kicked him out they shouted, "Get out of here, you criminal." Those living in the occupied Golan Heights are now a mix of Syrian Arabs and Israeli settlers. Syrians in the Golan taking on Israeli citizenship has become more common since the Syrian war erupted in 2011, but the vast majority reject it. Non-citizen Druze, who are a religious minority group, are regarded as having permanent residency status by the Israeli government, but can't participate in elections. Some members of the Druze community do in fact serve in the Israeli army. The Golan Heights is a strategic area that borders Lebanon, Syria, Israel, and Jordan. It's recognized as part of Syria but was occupied by Israel in 1967 and later annexed by Israel in 1981. UN Resolution 242 calls for Israel to withdraw from the Golan Heights and other territories it occupied in 1967, including
best democracy in the Middle East,
Gaza and the West Bank. But back in 2019, Donald Trump said the US should fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Some Israeli officials who blamed Hezbollah for the attack now warn of a strong response, something they've done multiple times in the past 9 months. But Lebanon's parliament speaker said Lebanon absolutely does not want war. But now many people are asking the question, will Israel use this attack to further expand its war?
Yeah, I mean, look, is there a likelihood that this was a Hezbollah strike? I think so. I don't think it's like that. Like, there's no strategic reason for this, for Hezbollah to do this, but, you know, I know that Hezbollah has denied responsibility. There are some on the ground eyewitnesses, but I don't think this was highly unlikely it was the Iron Dome. The explosion was far too big for the Tamir warhead, and the interceptor would be burning fuel right in until impact, so a glowing projectile with smoke trail would be visible in videos flying into the ground if this was the case, which it wasn't. I don't think even Israel wants the smoke of a second front without the US being ready to go boost on the ground. No, they do. Don't they typically own up to it when they strike? Why deny now? I mean, it could be a misfire. Like, it could be a Hezbollah misfire, and they don't, because they didn't like actually strike Israeli targets and instead ended up striking a bunch of Druze children playing football. So like, in order to save face. But in terms of like this being a false flag operation by Israel, that is the other angle here. That's what people are saying that it is, or a potential interceptor, a Tamir interceptor, misfiring and like striking this target. I don't know. I don't think that's the case. Seems a little bit far-fetched. The interceptor, I mean. I've been watching Israeli media very closely for the past few days, and despite trying, they just couldn't for the life of them find a Jablani Druze resident of Majd al-Shams that would actually call for the war. The few interviewees that they did were originally from inside the Green Line. Every signal from the Druze community has been a call for peace. But for those of you who are asking, like, Israel doesn't want the smoke from a two-front war, no, there's definitely a lot of appetite in Israel for a two-front war. I do not think that the Israeli leadership is thinking clearly about opening up a second front against a much better equipped enemy.
Children's bicycles left behind.
These paramedics arrived 10 minutes later.
The whole scene was truly chaotic. People screaming, searching for their children.
We found only dead kids. It was really hard to watch. I've never seen kids like that, and I've seen dead bodies.
Wait, what? You've never seen kids like that? I guess you haven't. Oh, well, I guess that's fair. They don't show what they do to kids in Gaza and Israel. So that's probably why. I believe her when she says she's never seen kids like that. No, I'm telling you, I think it's literally because they straight up don't show images of Gaza. She's in the IDF though. Yeah, they don't. I mean, she's working in Golan Heights. If she hasn't toured Gaza, if she wasn't in Gaza, then she probably hasn't seen it.
But not like that.
Israel and Hezbollah have been trading fire since October 7, but it's feared this escalation could trigger all-out war. The US has called for restraint as Israel vows to retaliate, warning there will be a price to pay. But backed by Iran and with its massive arsenal of missiles, Hezbollah is a far more formidable foe than Hamas in Gaza.
Druze leader Walid Jumblat denies Hezbollah had anything to do with this. He would know he's a good ally to Hezbollah. Yeah, the thing is, like, it also doesn't make sense for Hezbollah to, like, directly target Syrian territory, specifically the Druze, who are not exactly pro-Israel by any means, by any metric. As a matter of fact, are openly anti-Israel and contentious. I'm not gonna, I don't care about the one guy, the Walid guy, but, like, I'm saying from a larger, in terms of a broader snapshot of Hezbollah's actions, I think the last time that they actually recognized when they struck like a Palestinian citizen of Israel, like a Palestinian target on accident, they took ownership over it, but it was a long time ago. And beyond that, part of the reason why they would potentially deny this, even if they were accidentally responsible for it, Hasan, it's not true. Most Druze living in Israel support Israel and even serve in the army very commonly. This is in the Golan Heights. This is the one territory where, like, as Time Without an Owo was saying, they famously threw their Israeli passports, and even though they have permanent residency in Israel, they refuse. So you're wrong. Yes, there are a lot of Druze. There are a lot of Druze and Arabs in Israel that serve. Not a lot, but like there's a decent amount of Druze and Arabs in the Israeli military. But this is not what we're talking about here. My analysis or my speculation, my speculation alert, is that it's most likely a misfire, but because the tensions are super high and Hezbollah has been like targeting northern Israeli territory and IDF positions deliberately, and in most circumstances not even like directly targeting Israeli citizens and civilians, even though like obviously there's still fires that occur and sometimes they do hit civilians as well. Overall, this would be the reason for why they don't take ownership over this attack and instead deny it, because like I said, tensions are very high. That's my speculation on it. They have a tense relationship with the Druze. They make up a third of the Lebanese population, and although their leader Jumblat is pro-Hezbollah, many Druze aren't, and so being seen to kill a dozen Druze children next door in the Golan Heights, even if accidentally, is not good optics. Yeah, that's what I think. There is no reason. Elon Luz is such a liar, Lamau. There is no reason for, I don't even think there's a reason for Israel to deliberately target and kill a bunch of Druze children there. I don't think that there is any reason for either party, like Israel or Hezbollah, to strike there. Do you know Israel, Lamau? No, I think like if Israel was to do a false flag operation, I suspect that they would do it in an area that is more like in an area that strikes the chord, strikes at the heart of Israeli citizens. Like the Druze, I don't think is enough pretext for the rest of Israeli society, but maybe they would falsely claim them and be like, oh, they hit our soil, they hit our people again, especially considering Bezalel Smotrich tried to go to the funeral, even though he was yelled at. Ultimately, I don't know. Israel's war on Gaza live. Health ministry declares polio epidemic in Gaza. Oh, here. Israel has promised that Hezbollah will pay a heavy price for a deadly attack on Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Hezbollah denies that it carried out the attack. Hezbollah has admitted other accidental strikes in the past. But the United States and Israel are saying it's Hezbollah. Hezbollah is saying it's not us and it's Israel. We shall see what happens if there's like any sort of independent analysis on the matter. What is this? The U.S. is leading diplomatic efforts to rein in anticipated Israeli response to the deadly strike on Golan. To keep this episode contained, the U.S. is urging Israel not to strike Beirut, Dahia, or civil infrastructure in Lebanon. If they avoid civilians and they avoid Beirut and its suburbs, then their attack will be well calculated, Deputy Parliament Speaker Elias Bou-Saab told Reuters. They would not do that. When has Israel done that? Not exactly known for making calculated retaliations. I guess with the exception of going up against Iran. That's the only time when I saw their retaliation be like somewhat more calculated and measured. Even though their original act that sparked the Iranian retaliation was not calculated. The security sources had earlier told Reuters that Hezbollah had pulled out of some key sites in South Lebanon and the eastern Bekaa Valley, but had not taken similar measures in Dahia. All 5 sources who spoke to Reuters on the diplomatic effort said they aim to achieve a calibrated approach similar to which contained April's exchange of missiles and drone attacks between Israel and Iran after Israel's strike on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Why are you getting your news from Twitter? Wait, what? Why am I getting my news from Twitter? This is the bureau chief for Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan at Reuters. Reuters, man. Like, this person wrote this article and they're breaking their story here. Like, I'm not looking at like a random Twitter thread. Dude, Wikipedia Andes are so illiterate. Like, I don't know. This sequence of tweets is akin to reading a newspaper. You understand that, right? Like, if I just like got a printout of a newspaper, like that's what it is. It's the same as reading the article. It's just summarizing the article. It's breaking the story that the bureau chief for Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan at Reuters is breaking on Twitter. This is the issue. When you try to repeat what you heard from like Bonarelli or some shit, and you come in here and you say it, you look like a dumbass. Also, it is rather ironic considering that like actual journalists that I oftentimes collaborate with on a regular basis that I bring to this broadcast routinely talk about the amount of effort I put in to making sure that like everything that I'm reporting on here and doing commentary on here is like at least well sourced. So I don't know, but let's finish this up.
Where people are also trapped in a relentless cycle of despair. And just this weekend,
but one thing I do know is that the coverage on this immediately from Western media that is often very reluctant, very, very suspiciously reluctant to cover with active voice, they immediately were like, hey, what's up? This is definitely Hezbollah and babies were murdered and mutilated, which they were. However, that same tone never exists when it's an Israeli strike blowing Palestinian children to bits. Odd.
Israel issued more evacuation orders. Exhausted and furious, this is the 5th time we've had to move, says this woman. Where do we go? Thousands of Palestinians once again forced out of shelters into the unknown.
The United Nations says that now only 14% of Gaza is not under evacuation orders, leaving people destitute, homeless, and completely out of safe options to run to. Michelle?
Crisis beyond crisis. Deborah Patta in East Jerusalem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Israel's security cabinet.
Israel authorized Netanyahu's retaliation against Hezbollah as well. The Lebanon government condemns deadly rocket attack.
Whatever happened.
But it says it does not give Israel a license to kill.